It began during a war, as things do. We all formed tribes and began killing the teachers. I cut Mr. Shawn apart from myself with the hunting knife my grandfather gave me the last time he took me hunting ravens. We needed his entrails for our weavers and our poets. I think Mr. Shawn was grateful. A group of sixth graders had caught him in the cafeteria earlier by the vending machines and cut out his eyes, flayed him, and raped him with the clubs they had fashioned by cutting the dicks off of their fathers and stretching the skin over the thick poles. He was spitting blood up because of something they'd broken in him, and I think he loved me for cutting him open. I took a broomstick out of the janitor's closet and nailed one end of his intestines to it, and then rolled the rest of his intestines out of his stomach, twisting them around the broomstick. They stretched more than 25 feet when around the broomstick. Let me go back. They stretched more than 25 feet when I was done. Mr. Shawn had told me that intestines were that long in science class a month ago, but I didn't believe him until we started collecting them for the weavers and the poets. He was lucky. Most kids wouldn't have killed them first. I put the thick roll of Mr. Shawn's intestines over my shoulder and started walking to the gym, which is the room where we kept the weavers. Outside of Mrs. Harris's room, a tribe of fifth graders were raping Miss Clark, Miss Tolgos, and Miss Harris. The boys were raping them. The girls were slowly slicing away their nipples with vegetable peelers they'd won in the great cafeteria war against the lunch ladies. These kids didn't want anything more than this. They didn't care about the weavers or poets, so they left the teachers raped and scared and blind, but didn't take their entrails. So I killed Miss Tologos and Miss Harris and rolled their entrails onto the broomstick with Mr. Shawn's. It was harder with Miss Clark. They left her one eye, and she was watching me. She was naked, and they'd taken her nipples, her tongue, and she was so ripped apart down there, it looked like dogs had been at her and not just kids. But I really need her entrails, more than she did at this point. So I put my knife in her remaining eye and twisted it into her brain. And I rolled her entrails up with the rest, around the corner in the hall outside the nurse's office. The nurse, Carol, from the office, and the fat principal were hanging from the walls by nails punched through their wrists and ankles and knees and shoulders. Their bodies were just gaping, empty bags, no entrails to salvage. And then I saw Jake Powell, Jake's tribe and their first grade slaves. That was the truly sick thing. Jake was raping the same first grade kid he had been raping even before the war began. You already knew about that. This dumb little kid with glasses. Jake used to have to sneak around but with the teachers dead or dying, he could do what he pleased. I watched him torture his first grade slaves for a while. He maimed and raped and bled and squeezed and screamed and sucked and chewed and twisted. Even before the war, Jake was wrong. When the weavers give me my cloak, maybe I can do something about him. The broomstick was heavy, and I had enough guts, so I made my way to the gym, where the weavers worked. Since the weavers started working, the gym stopped smelling like a gym and started smelling like a butcher shop and a toilet. All those entrails being braided and woven. You wondered how the weavers could stand it, but when they changed into weavers, maybe they lost their sense of smell. We had been in home period, in Miss Clark's room, when the first weaver was chosen. We don't know by who. Some think there are aliens on Earth, like the body snatchers, and some think God did it. But whoever did it, in the middle of class, this girl suddenly screamed and her eyes turned into balls of blue grass, and her arms stretched out like poles, and her hands grew new fingers and grew big. This was happening in other classes, but we didn't know that. And she started asking for entrails, not to eat, but to make things with. So we put her and the others in the gym, and they started making looms out of the janitor's supplies. And we started killing for them. We had to give the weavers what they needed. Some of us sort of hung back to see what the weavers were making from the teachers' entrails before we started killing and gutting. But when the first cloak was made and the first poet climbed the hill, I knew I had to kill However, many teachers I needed two so that I could have one. I gave a weaver my last pile of entrails, and she tied them onto the ends of their entrails I had brought her and started weaving. The cloth the weavers make from the teacher's entrails is like nothing you've ever seen. It's like a river and a taste of salt. It's like an ocean with fish moving through black water. When the weaver finished my gut cloak, she put it around my shoulders, and I felt the pull. And I walked out of the building to the soccer field, where the tribes who kept the first through third grade kids as slaves and made them build a mountain. And I climbed the mountain and joined the poets there. We watch the war, and we write about the great deeds done or the horrors done. And that is how God remembers you, the way we write you, and no other way.